home. First question, how are innovations in health testing improving care with diseases like cancer?
So we owe a lot of what we know from the improvement of these technologies from what we understand about the human genome now. And just for context, I don't know who's listening. Our knowledge of the human genome, the Genome Atlas project, the Human Genome Project, was complete in the early 2000s. It took about 20 years, $1 billion to complete. At that time, if you wanted to do a whole genome sequence for rare disease and find out what's going on with the child that was born, it was estimated that it cost $100 million to sequence a genome back then. Well, the advancements in technologies today, most of us can pay for a whole genome sequence out of pocket. And depending on what the disease is, your insurance will cover it. But that facilitated a lot of what we know that is enabled, like the advancements in diseases like cancer and rare disease. For instance, we've been able to improve, healthcare outcomes with cancer. You can sequence the genome of a cancer cell, find driver mutations, certain genes that are causing the growth of that cancer, and you can target it with a drug. And that's enabled, diseases like lung cancer, metastatic melanoma that 10 years ago was considered a lethal disease. Lung cancer itself, 50% of those patients who were diagnosed were, deceased in 12 months. Well, now, because of precision oncology, being able to sequence the genome and target these, we can now think of cancer like chronic disease, much like blood pressure or diabetes, that as long as you're taking your medication, you can live for, years, even with disease in your body. With the stable disease, you can take that medication and continue to live. So we've been able to improve healthcare outcomes through, targeted therapies. Another thing with the advancement in healthcare technology testing is we can prevent disease or detect it early. There are a number of companies that are doing early detection, that you can get blood samples and find, cancer cells that are circulating in the blood. Hereditary cancer testing, which Invitae does. You can find whether a healthy person sequencing healthy genes have genes that make them a higher risk for developing cancer or other diseases, and take, mitigating factors, lifestyle modifications, or preemptive, medical decisions like, most people are familiar with Angelina Jolie, who did a, prophylactic mastectomy as a preventative measure for not getting breast cancer. So, this advancement has helped us to prevent disease or detect it early. And then the thing that is most exciting, in fact, the CEO of Regeneron was on CNBC yesterday talking about gene editing. Gene editing gives us the possibility to eradicate disease. When we think about rare disease, there's about 7,000 rare diseases. 80% of those diseases have a genetic, driver, and 50% of those patients affected with those rare diseases are children. And so the usual experience is these children are born with genetic diseases, and the families have to go through these painful, diagnostic odysseys to find out, what's going on with their child. And when you finally get your finger on it, oh, by the way, there's no effective therapies and there's no cure. Gene editing is going to allow us to create therapies, effective therapies for these diseases. And we already see this in spinal muscular atrophy that affects children, and sickle cell, for instance, that can eliminate the disease. So that's really the exciting part of, how technology has enabled us to get better genetic insights in order to fight diseases, improve outcomes, and in some cases eliminate these diseases that we have no effective therapies for.
So that's a great segue from the advancement and innovation